Hello and welcome to Business Conversations with Aunt Gaitha. We will be just starting in a moment. So go ahead and just bear with us as we go live on Facebook. Thank you. All right, welcome to Business Conversations with Aunt Gaitha. For those of you who are on Zoom and some of you who are on Facebook, welcome very much. I'm very excited because today is our first episode. The last couple of weeks we were talking about wealth, but then we decided for the next 10 weeks we'll be talking about business, how to have a successful business, and how to make sure that you're able to create generation wealth through business. So for those of you who've joined in, I hope you'll have a very interesting conversation with me. I would really appreciate you asking me any questions that you may have so that I can be able to make sure that you have a better understanding about how to run a successful business. So this episode will be from now 6 o'clock until 7 p.m. And what we're going to start off with is just have a 30-minute session of just me going through around what business is, how to create a successful business, whether you're a startup or existing business, and how to navigate business as the COVID-19 pandemic goes on. And also we know that it's going to end pretty soon or hopefully, and into the new normal. What do you need to do to be able to be successful in business? So go ahead and just look on Facebook to see if people are joining in so that we can go ahead and start in that next 1 minute. Right. I'm still waiting for a few people to join in on Facebook so that we can go ahead and start this conversation. So just go ahead and bear with me for the next minute also. Thank you again for joining in. I do see Moi Kihu. Thank you again for joining us at the business conversation. Also, I see Lizzie and Caroline, and I see a few people joining us on Facebook. So let's go ahead and have a candid conversation about business. All right. All right, so thank you everyone for joining in today. Like I said, I'm very excited to talk about business for the next couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aunt Gaitha. I'm the founder of the Regal Africa Group, and I established Regal Africa in 2015 to help people create wealth. So when people ask me, what is it about creating wealth? I tell people there are two things that you need to do to create wealth. One, you need to have business profits. The next thing you need to do is have investment income. So for you to become wealthy, you have to make sure that you're able to do these two things so that you can be able to create wealth. And for the next 10 weeks, I'll go ahead and just be talking about business, how you can be successful in business, and how do you navigate the new normal so that you can be successful in the next years to come. So why business conversation? Exactly what I said, because the company that I run is all about creating wealth, but business is the core of exactly what we do. One of the things I've been telling a lot of people is that the only sustainable way to eradicate poverty on the African continent and actually globally is through business, through trade, whether you're trading goods or whether you're trading services. So for us to be able to eradicate poverty, for us to create wealth, then business is at the core. And for a lot of people, people are finally understanding the importance of business, especially after COVID, because people realize people are not making money as they used to. People are not living the lives that they used to. And the reason is that many businesses have been affected. And they've been affected because there's less demand for business goods and services. People are probably not paying because they are holding on to their savings as much as they can. There's been a disruption in the business economy, and you see a lot of being done by government and international organizations to solve this. But I think that tells you the importance of business. So what we'll be doing is really discussing what are the steps that I need to take in order for us to be successful in business, no matter what stage that you are in. So for me, what I say, for you to be successful, you have to actually understand what level of business are you? Are you a startup, right? Are you scaling up? Or have you plateaued? Because all of them have different strategies on how to be successful. For example, if you are a startup business, so you've come into this period, you've realized that there are solutions that you can provide to the market. And so you're saying, okay, I have this great idea. What should I do? For you who is in a startup, right? So at least you're less than 3 years. Your strategy is going to be very different from someone who's scaling up or someone who has plateaued. What I usually say about startups is that you have to start right. For us at Regal Africa, we have what we call 30 steps that you need to take in 30 days for you to be successful. And I'll be sharing a little bit of that later on. The other thing I always tell people is before you start any business, first of all, you have to understand the why. Why are you starting this business? For me, I started my business because I believed it was my purpose, it's my calling, and I'm very passionate about helping people create wealth. But for other people, the main reason they're starting a business is because they want to make money. How they make money doesn't matter. All they want to do is make money. So actually understanding why you are starting business is very important, because if you're starting a business just to make money, if you don't make money within the next 6 months or 1 year, you're going to leave that business. Or you'll be able to move from one business to the other, because for you, it's all about money. But if you start a business because you know that it's going to solve a community problem, if you know you're going to make money and impact, then probably it's going to take you longer than somebody who's just in it for the money. So that means you actually have to have a different mindset to make sure that you're successful in business. The other thing you really need to think about is your market. I keep telling everybody, for you to be successful in business, you have to understand your market. You have to do market research. You have to know, what is your competition doing? What are the substitute goods or services that are happening? What are complementary? You have to understand this market, the size of the market. Is it only local? Is it regional? Is it global? Because understanding the market is critical. A lot of people just start business, right? And very soon they fail because they just had someone saying, that's a great business idea. But I always say that's the wrong decision. Even if someone has told you this is a great business idea, you want to make sure that you do market research. You make sure that the kind of business that you're doing, you actually understand what it takes to be successful in that business. If it's a business in whereby you're buying and selling goods, you have to understand where to source for those for the things that you're selling. You actually have to understand who will be your end consumer and what do they need. You also need to understand, if I need financing, what kind of financing can I get? So you need to really know these things, because it's very critical to understand your market and whether it is a scalable market or it's very little. One thing I do have to tell you, isn't when you do market research, like I did for my business, you might sometimes understand that people need your goods or services, but maybe they might not be willing to pay for it or the amount of money you're willing to charge. So when you're doing market research, it's not really about what people need, but also are they willing to pay for it at the price point. So you have to really look at pricing, look at the value that you're offering so that you can be successful in business. And then the key here is just being prepared. You have to have a plan. You have to have a business plan. A lot of people say, I don't need a business plan. I just started. I hear that a lot. And for those, I say sometimes you're lucky if you just didn't have a plan and you started. But if you're thinking that you want to run a professional business, you want to make sure that you have a plan in place, because it's going to take money and a lot more resources to have a successful business. And like I said, these are for startups. The other thing you really need to do is just make sure that you actually have a strategy from, for example, if it's a side hustle, for moving from a side hustle to a main business. So you really have to look at this long run, because any business to be successful takes time. So you have to actually be patient yourself. You actually have to have patient capital. So that means you actually needed to have started getting funding either from yourself, your family, friends, or what I call fine angels, or some people call them fools, but I call them fine angels. So you have to understand your source of capital to make sure that your business is sustainable. But if you're scaling, which is the kind of business that I usually support, I usually talk to people and say, for you to be successful in this kind of business, you really need to, of course, understand your market, but you need to have an expansion strategy or a growth strategy. One of the things that a lot of people need to realize is, you know, a lot of people grow organically, right? So you keep growing your business, acquiring more customers, but that takes time. One of the strategies that you can actually do is you can actually merge with your competitor. The other strategy that you could do is acquire a competitor. And those are very important strategies for you if you're looking to scale up. To just give you in context, for example, here in Kenya, right? So we had the bank, NIC Bank, and we had CBA Bank. They were both tier 2 banks, really. So they were not the top 5. But then the last year they went ahead and merged. So they merged to NCBA. What happened? All of a sudden they were together number 3 in the market, right? It would have taken years for NIC to become number 3 and many years for CBA to become number 3 if they had done it alone. But for them coming together, they were able to become number 3. So the strategy you want to be looking at if you're scaling is to say, do I want to do a merge? Do I acquire? Or if you want to go at it yourself, then maybe what you need to do is now start raising capital. Now that's a very interesting conversation, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll bring experts here who will be talking about what do you need to do to access capital. There are different types of capital. The basic ones are debt and then equity, but there are very many different structures or different ways of getting capital. But most people I know debt. So you go to the bank, you borrow, and it's based on the collateral that you have. But there, like I said, there are alternative ways of funding, and we'll be discussing that in different episodes, and I hope you'll be tuned in at that time. So if you want to grow organically, then that might be a strategy for you for success. But then what happens if you've plateaued, right? So a lot of businesses will tell you they've reached a point, they're not growing, they're not losing customers, they've just stayed the same for years. What do you need to do to be successful in such a business? For that kind of business, I always say that you need to innovate. You need to, what I call, level up. You really need to start saying, what do I need to do in this business to switch it so that I scale up? Does that mean I use things like technology? Does that mean I bring a different product? What is it that I need to do to be able to take things to the next level? And that's very, very, very important, because again, you do not want as a business to stagnate, right? The goal of a business is to scale up, make money, make profit, and be able, I believe, to serve the community that you serve. So like I said, for you to be successful, you have to understand what stage of the business are you. So with that, I also tell people, And today I'll be going a little bit fast because I think we have a lot of fun, a lot of things to discuss around running a successful business. But in the next couple of weeks, I'll be bringing in guests, and we'll sort of have them more fine-tuned in regards to the strategies or the things that need to be done in regards to business. One of the things I've been saying, for any business to be successful, you have to focus on your assets. And I always say there are three core assets that you need to look at. One is your financial assets, right? Two is your brand asset. Three, it's your talent asset. What do I mean by this? Of course, financial assets is very easy, right? So your financial assets are, what do you own, right? So you can be able to get that in your balance sheets. You'll be able to see your current assets, you can see your fixed assets. This basically is cash, it is building, it is equipment, it's accounts receivable. It's just basically anything you own are your financial assets. Now you really need to manage this because it's very critical for you to stay in business. A lot of people are in business, they're making money, but sometimes they have to close down. Why? Because they don't really understand or what's going on in their business. So what we always tell people is you have to manage your financial assets, especially cash flow. You really need to be able to, for you to stay in business, you want to manage your cash flow to make sure that you have enough cash for operations. Because even though you might have, people who owe you money, but they're not paying you, guess what? You very soon be able to, have to close down because you do not have the money to sustain you. So financial assets are very critical because the more you grow your financial assets, the better it is. But you have to be very critical about how you manage it. Let me give you an example. An example is a company like Uchumi, right? And I'm talking here because I see most of my audience is in Kenya. So I'll go ahead and just talk about a few things that are going on in Kenya. So if you look at Uchumi and you look at their book, Uchumi has assets. They have assets worth billions and billions of shillings, but they still are having problems. Why are they having problems? Because they don't have cash. So they have their assets in property, in land, but there's no cash flow. So even when you're running or you want to run a successful business, you want to balance that. You can't put all your money into unliquid. You don't put your money into assets that when you need cash, you cannot liquidate them. So financial asset management is very critical. And I always talk to people about saying that you need to speak to a professional who will be able to do financial statement analysis and really look at your books and advise you accordingly. Understanding your numbers is critical. I say numbers don't lie. I can easily look at anyone's financial statement and really tell them whether there's a problem or it's a great business. Numbers don't lie. The other thing I talk about is brand assets. This is becoming critical, especially as we continue running our businesses globally. Why is that? Your brand is what people say about you when you're not there. It's what they say about your product. Your brand supersedes you as a company, as a person. So really managing your brand is very, very critical, and it's always a continuous engagement. You have to know, what does your target audience need? What does your target market want? And you need to be able to position that. You need to be able to really understand what I call your brand essence. And so having a brand strategy is very critical for that. And what I always say is you really need to stand out from the crowd, right? So there are different brands that stand out from the crowd. If you look at, for example, in the beverage industry, everybody in the world knows about Coca-Cola, but they don't know about other beverage brands. Why is that? So when you're starting a business, for you to be successful, you have to be able to create a brand that stands out and always is top of mind of your customers. The third thing is your talent assets. Talent assets are basically your employees. There is no business that can be successful that doesn't have good talent. And usually that's the challenge that we see sometimes with SMEs, because really good talent usually like to work for, multinationals or big corporates. But I always say, even in that case, even if the talent is not at the point you need them to be, you need to be able to train them and give them the knowledge and information that they need so that they can make sure that they do their job at your business to be able to run it well. We always say you need to take care of your talent, because if you don't take care of your talent, in this case, your employee, they will leave, there'll be a high turnover, and your business will not do well. So those are that's one of the key things that I say is quite important. But I always say it's good to hire right. I'd rather a business not hire anybody and not have the wrong person, because having the wrong talent is really a big problem, especially when you want to let them go because they're not performing. It's really a hard thing to do, especially in Kenya, where a lot of the laws look at the employee and not the employer. You want to be very careful that by the time you're hiring somebody, that they're the right fit and that they're trainable, that they're coachable, because if you don't do that, then they'll bring you problems in the long run. So remember, for you to run a successful business, you need three things. Your financial assets, you need to manage them well. You need your brand assets, you need to manage that, and your talent assets. Now, a lot of people have been asking me this. Okay, so because we have a lot of things confused in regards to what kind of business are you? A lot of people say, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, but they're self-employed, right? So I always tell people, in my opinion, there are four distinct types of, businesses, right? One, you can be self-employed, which is what I see a lot of people are. Self-employed means everything depends on you, right? You're the one who does the hair, you're the one who owns that shop, you're the baker. A lot of people are in business, but they're self-employed, meaning if they do not go into that business or do any work, nothing gets done. A lot of people are consultants, right? So that means if they are not the ones who are doing the job, then the business does not run. So you will see they're self-employed people. They are what I call business owners. The third group I always said are entrepreneurs. And then the fourth one are investors, people who invest in business. I already just talked about self-employed people. Self-employed people are, like I said, are people who it all relies on them, right? It's all about them. And if they do not work, nothing goes on. So that's usually the first stage. The second stage is now a business owner. A business owner is someone who has already, how do I put it? They've already put processes in place. So when they're not, their business goes on. They're still able to make money. And that's what I always tell people. You want to move from self-employment to business, to being a business owner, because you want to be in a business whereby if you're not there, the show goes on, as I put it. So you want to be a business owner. The third stage, I always say, is being an entrepreneur. We've been hearing a lot of people saying, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Not so much. An entrepreneur is someone, I believe, who is being very innovative in what they're doing in business, right? So you can't be, all you do is a tenderpreneur, you supply government and you say you're an entrepreneur. No, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a business person, right? And that is if you're hiring people and your process is in place. That's not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who sees opportunity. It's scalable, in my opinion. So that means maybe you started off with, maybe you owned a hardware store, and then now you're able to grow the hardware store. You're actually able to franchise the hardware store. You're able to bring in different things. You're able to use technology. People are able to buy e-commerce. That's an entrepreneur. That's someone who's actually visionary, someone who's doing great things, as opposed to just having one store and be a business owner. So when you move, as you go on the stage, you want to start off from self-employment to business owner to an entrepreneur. And then I think the ultimate business person is an investor. An investor is basically someone who really has invested in businesses and also other asset classes, but most of them is usually in businesses, whether it's in public listed companies or private companies. And what they do is that they own shares in those companies, but they don't necessarily manage them. And because they don't necessarily manage those, they're able to be in very many different businesses and be able to reap the profits in that business. Or, if the valuation goes up and they sell it, they're able to get good returns. So the reason I bring this up is I hope that in the next season, you start having to have a plan to say, how do I move from being self-employed to being a business owner then to being an entrepreneur, and eventually being an investor. All right. And all these things are very important because the kind of funding that you get, remember, in what we do at Regal Africa, we help people raise capital, right? The kind of funding you get depends on the type of business that you are in, right? So if you're self-employed and then you're trying to get an equity investor, it won't work. You're a consultant and you're saying, I want an equity investor to come in. It will not work, right? So the type of where you are, your state, the type of business that you do creates the opportunity for you to become, to get the kind of funding that you will need. And so this is very critical when you're thinking about your business, and in the next, in the next stage post-COVID, what are you going to do? Because if you want to have a successful and scalable business, then you want to do things a little bit different. Now, the last thing before I go in and talk about and start getting questions and answering some of the questions that I got, I have to say this. For you to be successful in business, you have to have the right partner. The right partner is very important. I learned it what I would say hard way, right? You have to be very careful with who you partner with, right? You have to make sure that you and that person are in sync in the vision of the company, of the business. You have to be very careful with your partner that it's very clear the type of role each person is playing, right? So that from the get-go, you know, this is your responsibility, this is your responsibility, and have that written down. Because as time goes by, things change, right? So for you to get the right partner, make sure you have the same vision. It's very clear, you know, the partner role. You need to be very clear in regards to, you know, management, because sometimes you can have a partner who's a silent partner. All they did is bring in cash and you're doing management. It has to be very clear there. And this is very important because if you have issues in management, if you have issues in ownership, as you can see a lot that has been happening in a lot of also family businesses, when you have issues with that, it affects the business. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry, I think maybe it's the weather or it's the, I've been talking too much, but I'll go ahead and just, maybe that's a sign that I need to start taking questions so that I can answer them for the next 30 minutes. Like I said, today was just sort of review, not a review, but today was an episode or a conversation whereby I really wanted to just paint a picture around business. What does it take to be in business? The steps that you need to take, what I think is very critical, because again, in business, it's all about where do you access your finance, you know, the kind of market that you can access. It's all about making money. It's all about making money, but also some people it's about impact. So today I really wanted to give you information that I think that you need to think about as we go on to other episodes whereby we are very focused and saying, okay, this is how I move, say, from corporate to being an entrepreneur. This is how I build a brand. This is how I get funded. The other conversations will be more focused, but today was just to paint a picture around business. And so with that, I'll go ahead and just welcome people who are on the call. You can either raise your hand if you're on Zoom and I'll go ahead and unmute you, or if you would like to put if you would like to then put a question on the chat, I'll be able to answer that. Also, before this, I've gotten a few questions online, so I'll also go ahead and answer that. I see a hand here. I'll go ahead and unmute Nyambura. So, Nyambura, what is your question?
Hi, Anne.
Hi, Nyambura.
Glad to see you back. We're so excited. Now, I just wanted to know
Yes.
how to move from self-employed, because I think today you validated my position. I thought I was an entrepreneur. But now I need to know, what are the steps to move from self-employed to entrepreneur in terms of your ideas? Thank you.
All right. That's a very important question. I always tell people for you to move from being self-employed to being a business owner or entrepreneur, all has to do with processes, right? Right? So you want to be in a place whereby if you're not working, somebody else is, right? So the first thing is to actually put together a business plan and say, who needs to help me in this business? What don't I need to do? Especially a lot of this administration stuff, right? Sending emails, going to collect different things. You don't have to do it all. Accounting, you don't have to do the accounting yourself. You don't have to be the human resource person. Basically, when people start, they like to do everything. I always tell people that you want to put processes in place so that then you get people, and like I said, outsource people to run it. So the first thing I would say is to say, okay, I'm self-employed right now. I want to spend my time maybe building relationships, building networks. What should I do? So then that means going in and maybe hiring an assistant, an intern, or whatever it takes to then train that person to be able to do those, like I said, mundane clerical work that you don't have to do yourself. And you can do it at an affordable price point. And that frees you then to go and do more important things in the business. The second thing you need to do really is what, and it's part of the 30 steps to professionalize your business in 30 days, which is something we came up with at Regal Africa. And if you're interested, you can email us. So then you need to go in through those steps and say, okay, I don't want to spend so much time doing certain things. What technology can I use? Do I need a CRM? Do I need a cloud system so that I'm not sending emails all the time? You start asking yourself, should I outsource my accounting because I don't understand accounting? So again, what you need to do is just do those processes in place. But again, it depends on where you are. So what I would say, Nyambura, is to move from self-employment to being a business owner is now getting the right talent, the right processes in place that will enable you then to be able to run your business, and your business can run even when you're not there. And that's something we can also take offline, and that's a service that we offer that will then tell you what you need to do and the exact steps that you need to take so that could happen. But that's what I keep telling everyone: move from self-employment to business owner and eventually to entrepreneur. I hope I answered you, but if anything else, you can email us at info@regalafrica.co.ke and I'll be able to give you a more specific answer. All right, I do see Caroline with her hand up. Go ahead, Caroline, and ask your question. Caroline? You're not on mute. All right, I'm not so sure, but maybe I'll wait for Caroline to continue getting her questions. Anybody else who'd like to go ahead and ask questions specifically about their business, and I can be able to answer that. All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just go ahead and ask a few questions that we got earlier on, and then we can continue this business conversation with Gaitha. So the first question. Oh, hi.
How are you?
Good. Oh, Caroline, yes. What question do you have?
Okay, my question is a very interesting one and maybe specific to my situation and the reason for my joining. I'm in the business of training and consultancy. And by training, I mean organizing conferences and seminars. Now, with the onset of the pandemic since March, I have not been able to do anything. And therefore, I need to re-strategize or change my strategy. And I'm looking out for ways of doing that. I have tried out webinars, but the challenge we have with webinars is whenever you are offering free webinars, you have a class of say 100, 200, 300, but the minute you put a shilling to it, you have 2 people or 3 people willing to pay just 1,000. And we cannot, as an organization, as an enterprise, you cannot survive with this kind of monies. I'm looking out for a strategy, a survival strategy, if you may have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, we are all looking to survive. And I definitely hear your concern, because especially when COVID happened and everyone went online like we're doing now. And if
Yes.
I actually had people pay, there'd be less people. So I understand your concern. But this has been my feeling of how I look at it.
Okay.
At this time, during COVID, it's not necessarily about making money, it's about surviving. And it's about keeping your clients have to keep you top of mind for when things change, right? So again, I would say, even if it's those free events, don't make them long. You know, trainings, because you said you do training and consulting. Training, and when I do training, it's half day, 1 day, 2, 3 days. Those someone has to pay. And maybe what you want to do is go ahead and just do like a 1-hour session, which is free. And then now tell people, if you want more in depth, then you go in for the training. But you want to still continue giving information and making people know that you're still in business. The other second thing I'd go in is look at then now your core clients, right? Training, consulting, I'm assuming they're corporates or governments or institutions. Again, if continue to build that relationship with them and say, look, at this point, I can still give your employees the same content at a lower cost. Because usually in training, right, you usually factor in, you know, the hotel, the accommodation because of events, right? So it's about putting together a proposition and say, look, this is the price that would give you maybe 50% of the normal price. And that's because we are not taking into effect this. And if, like I mentioned earlier, if the goal for that institution is to make sure that their employees have the right information, they're knowledgeable, they're trained, then they will look and say, you know what, I'm actually reducing my cost by a certain percentage. Why don't we do this thing now? Because once we go back to normal and we have to take these people through this training, they would pay a higher price. So I think it's about presenting a proposal that shows the value of why the training needs to be done. And I'm talking about now your core business people who do repeat business, and tell them, this is the value I present in regards to training. Or the other thing you can do, because you know we have a limitation of maybe having only 15 people at a time, then now you can find those people who want face-to-face and only do 15. Now you might not make as much money as before, but I think at this stage, what you're trying to do is survive until after COVID. So that's what I would say. But don't stop what you're doing. I would say keep continue to do the training, and yeah, people want free. People will pay only 1,000 or 500, and it's not sustainable as a training organization. And so just like I said, do the things like I say, show the value of what the cost, if they do the cost right now, especially people who are doing continuous education and have to, right? Then show them the value of the reduced cost, and I think that would help you in your business. And just continue being, the big thing here, I would tell you, is continue being, doing your digital marketing. Make sure you're top of mind of your clients. You have to be in every social media. You have to be on LinkedIn, because that's where the professionals are. So I don't know if you have a company page on LinkedIn, not a profile, a company page. Your website is updated. So just keep doing those things in digital marketing. And yeah, and I think that would help you. For more in-depth, then you can always call us at Ripple Africa, and we'll look at specifics and advise you accordingly.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. All right. The next question I have here is someone asked, hey, says, hello, I'm a startup. I get myself always adding money to my business. What could be the main reason? I always find myself adding money to my business. Okay, so I will have to tell you, for every startup, that's what happened. The first, and I would say the first 3 years, of every startup, I mean, because you're a startup, you're basically investing into your business. You're investing into your business. So you have to invest your time, you have to invest your capital from wherever you got it. You're putting in money. Now, if your business then is growing, it will reach a point, and usually you see it in the 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, whereby you no longer have to invest unless now you're taking on a bigger project. So for you, adding money is not the issue. What I would want you to do is to now look at your financials. I mentioned earlier, the critical thing every business has to do is financial statement analysis. So the first thing you need to do is go and look at your income statement or your profit and loss statement. Look at your revenue, right? So understand, how are you making money? Understand your expenses. Are your expenses more than your revenue? I'm assuming that is the case. That's why you keep putting money in. So then you analyze your expenses and say, do I have fixed costs? What are my my other expenses? And reduce your fixed costs, especially when you're startup. You want to make sure that you are managing your costs effectively and efficiently. One of the things I always tell about startups is you always have to outsource. Like for me, I'm a queen of outsource, right? No permanent accountant. Accounting, outsourced. Audit, outsourced. HR, outsourced. Legal, outsourced. If I'm doing a project, I get people in when I have a project. Basically, you do not need costs that you don't necessarily need to have, especially if you're looking for knowledgeable people. For me, I knew if I was to go ahead and say, for example, have a lawyer in my company, I'd have to pay them a lot of money, and I'm a startup. So what do? I'd rather have a retainer with a legal professional who's really good at their job, which is comparable than if I had maybe put in an intern, a legal intern who wouldn't help me so much. So for me, I would say, look at your profit and loss statement, analyze that, and really see what is it that needs to be done. But if you have not reached the 3 years, believe you me, it's every business, most businesses, you need to keep adding money. But what I would say, if you notice that it's there is no, there's no gold, there's no gold at the end of the rainbow, and you're just seeing that you're just pouring money and you do not see profit in the near future, I've told people it's okay to close that business. It's okay. If it's not making money sense, don't keep putting money into that business. But again, that goes back to, did you have a business plan? And if you had your business plan and you actually had your financial projection, when had you envisioned that you'd break even? When did you envision, based on your projections, that you would make money? Are you in line with that, right? So it all boils down to your numbers. So you have to look at your company, understand, where am I making money, what are my expenses, and then you can then make a decision about whether to continue with the business, whether to close the business, or whether to change the business, right? So you can make decisions, but based on your financial statements. And that's something that we do at Regal Africa. So if you're interested in that kind of service, let us know, and we would be able to look at your actual business and assist you with that. And I hope you're keeping your books, because if you're not keeping your books, most people cannot help you if they don't know exactly what's going on with your business. So, but I wish you well in your business, but realize in any business, you have to invest. You have to invest before you actually see success. All right. Now I'll go ahead, and I see a few more questions coming in, and I'll go ahead and we had a question about, so this was the question that I got: how to grow a business after getting funding or a loan. How to grow a business after getting a fund or a loan. Okay. That's an interesting question, because I would assume that before you got a loan or funding, you are getting it because of a specific purpose. That is where I see a lot of business fail. A lot of people, because we do capital raising, a lot of people come to us and they always ask, I want to raise capital. I want money for my business, right? And the first question we ask them is, how much and what are you going to use that money for? What is the use of funds? So, so if you get a loan or money, or you get funding, and you don't know what you're using for, that's actually for me a red flag, because you should have gotten that money based on what you projected for your business. So most people get money because they want to buy inventory, they want equipment. Some people with just working capital to just manage their business. Some people is they're trading, so they need trade finance. There are very many different things. Some people get equity because they want to do maybe more marketing, more visibility, maybe bring in new technology. So for you to grow your business wisely, you need to know, and in this case, if you've already gotten the money, you need to say, okay, I have this money. What's the best use of this funding? Because another thing I see people do is they get this money as business people, as self-employed people, entrepreneurs, and the first thing they do is go buy a big car, or they buy an office, or they furnish. They do things that don't add value to the business, until you get to a point whereby the business is sustainable, it's scaling. There are some things you don't necessarily need to do. You don't need to have that big office. There are virtual offices, there are self-serviced offices. Now that we've been working from home, we realize we can actually work from different places. But again, it depends on your business. So the only way to grow your business is to use the funds effectively and efficiently. So go back, before you use those funds, look into your business plan and say, what do I need to do so that this money can pay for itself, right? Is it an equipment that I need? Is it technology that I need to bring in? Is it personnel, talent that I need to do? Is it marketing? So you be very clear what it is that you're using those funds for, so then you can actually grow your business. But I would advise all of you in business, do not get a loan or get in an equity investor unless you know what it is you're going to use that money for. Otherwise, it will defeat the purpose, and you'll either lose the business or get someone taking over your business, which is not what I think anyone in business would want to do. So it's very critical that you use that wisely. Another question that we got was, how do you get children interested in their parents' business enough to run it into perpetuity? How do you get your children interested? Oh, wow. This is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. I'm really big on family business. I believe that that is something very critical, and I say especially in Africa, because I have seen it work around the world, and it's very important for you to grow, manage effective business, especially a family business, because I believe it creates generational wealth. Now, the question here was, how do you talk to your children? What do you do to your children? Let me give you a personal example. So like for me, I grew up with my parents running different businesses. So I always knew I was going to have a side hustle in a business or something that was going to help them to make sure it continues. And I am helping my family in these different businesses. But at the same time, I do realize that as parents keep changing from one business to the other, then how do you get these children involved, right? So I would say for you to make sure your children are involved in your business for forever and generations to come, you as the person who's starting out the business need to be very clear. What's the vision for this family business? And when they're very young, get them involved. Let them learn, what does it take to be successful in business? If you're in agribusiness, make sure they go to the farm or to the factory. If it's in service business in the bank, make sure they see what it is that they're doing, because once children are part of the business, then they will be interested in the business. The other thing, especially when they become older, is how do you get them involved? A lot of children I know are not interested in their parents' business because they're not given responsibility, right? So the parents just tell them what to do, and someone says, you took me to college, I have my master's, my PhD, and you're not even giving me the opportunity to run this business. So I think for parents to make sure that the business continues, it's very important that they give their children responsibility, but at the right time. So you need to start having those conversations about business succession planning. What happens in any situation, and making sure your children are involved. The third thing I would say is this. Your children don't have to necessarily be involved in day-to-day operation, but they could be involved strategically, right? So look at what your child is doing. Do they need to be on the board and not in management, right? So that they're more helpful there while they run their career. So they're still involved in the family business, just not in day-to-day running. So you want to say, what place do I see my children in? What would they like? And then get them involved. Because I think that might be the case that I see a lot of family business going through, because someone says, my family business is in education, but I'm a doctor. What do you want me to do with this? Or I'm a doctor and now my family business is in hospitality. What part do I play? So the goal here is to get them maybe into a board position so that they help certain elements around that. And at the end of it all, for any family business to be continuous, making sure that your children are the shareholders eventually after you, so structuring your business that way, and maybe getting good management in place to manage the day-to-day operation, but your children will continue having the control. Because it might not be your children now who will run that business, but maybe their children, the third generation, there might be someone, your grandchild, who will be interested in the business, even though their parents weren't. So that will make sure there's continuity because their parents are still shareholders. So there are very many different strategies. I work with families around that to say, how do we grow this family business? Do we ensure that that the family, the children are part of management or the board or vice versa? And that's what I would say. The other thing you can talk about, especially when you're looking to scale, is to maybe sometimes bring in outside shareholders. If you look at things like Walmart, if you look at things like JP Morgan Chase, I'm just bringing international companies. They have outside investors who've come into these family businesses. And this means that these businesses are able to scale up at a much bigger and do business at a much bigger level than if it stayed only with the family. So again, it starts with the vision. You as the parent, what is it that you want? Understanding your children, and then putting the strategies in place. And if you have any questions, again, reach us out at info@regalafrica.co.ke, and we will be able to give you more definite by understanding your family dynamics, because every family is different, and then we can advise accordingly. So thank you for that question. All right, I see another question here from Mary, who asks, if your children are not part of the business, how can you protect the investment for them to benefit in case you're not around, e.g. do a trust fund? If they're not part of the business, okay, all right. And you talk about trust fund, yes. So if the children are not involved, and like I said, and they're on the board, they have control of that because they can hire and fire management at any time, right? So your children will not lose that company as long as, for example, they have majority shareholding or they have control of the board that makes these major decisions. In the case of trust, we do that especially under what we call wealth management, which is something that I talked a lot when I had the wealth conversations with Gaitha. Again, you can put certain assets, including your business, in a trust, right? But what happens when you put it in a trust, then you have trustees, and they could be professional trustees or people that you trust. And so you seize ownership of that particular asset, which in this case would be the business. But the question is, will those trustees know how to run this business, right? So if the issue is about protecting the investment to make sure that the business is there for the long run, then the question is, what is the best structure to put it in, and who are the best people to put in there? If my children are not the right people to be on the board, who else can I bring on the board to make sure that the right decisions are being made? In fact, that was the next question about corporate governance. A lot of businesses fail because of corporate governance, because decisions are made by father or husband and wife or one person, and so you're not able to make maybe the best decisions there. So corporate governance is very important, because you want to make sure that you have a board that is making the best strategic decisions for that business, how to grow that business, how to manage that business. So the board is very critical, because they are the ones who then decide about management, who will be managing that particular business. And like I said, they have the control of either, hiring and firing, and just making sure that to protect the investment for your children, that the board that has the best interest for your children has the power, has majority say in that board. Because what I've seen happen is that then sometimes, depending on the board, who they sometimes take over the business, and outsiders can now make the decisions. So it's about being very strategic, and those are, like I said, things that we would look at in regard to structuring, and we do that a lot also with legal professionals and legal advisors. So we look at different scenarios to see what is the best scenario for you. And like I said, it also depends on the involvement of your children, right? How involved are they, or do they want to do? Because like I said, some people just say, I want owner, I just want shareholding, and I just want to get dividends. These other things, I'm not quite interested. So we would be able to look into that and see how best to advise that. So I hope Mary answered that question. And okay, so the continuation, you say, what if they're still young, underage, and unfortunately you pass on? All right. If they're still young, again, it depends on where this business asset was, right? So if it's a company, and who are the shareholders? Was it you? Did you leave a will and say my shares will go to my children? Who is the administrator of this estate? Was the business under trust, and so there are trustees involved? So if your children are underage, there are other decisions that you need to be, because they can't make business decisions when they're young. So whoever you choose to be their guardian, whoever is the administrator of the estate, or if it's a trust, whoever is the trustee, have control. But again, depending on how it's set up, the benefit, everything they do needs to have to be in the benefit of their children, of the beneficiaries. So there would be also other things to look at in regards to, if you notice that the guardian or the administrator of the estate, or in this case, a trustee, is not doing right for the children, then there are legal things that can be done in order to either remove them, or make sure that the beneficiaries are getting the best end. Because again, you worked so hard to build this business. You do not send an outsider to take over and misuse your hard work, because I always say everything is about family. It's about creating generational wealth. So if they're still young, I would say, have you put it in writing? Who is their guardian? Have you put it in a trust? What have you done to make sure that your children are protected in case something happens to you? It's very important. And I say anyone who has a child, that is what they need to be doing. All right. So with that, it looks like it's almost 7. I'll go ahead and just answer one more question. And then we can call it a day until next week, because the business conversation with Gaitha is there every Wednesday from 6 p.m. East Africa time, or 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So the question here was around penetrating the market. Okay. uh, that's a loaded question. And maybe I don't know if I'll give justice to it the short time that we have, but it's very important when you're thinking about how do I grow my market share. You have to ask yourself, okay, you first of all have to have a marketing strategy, right? So you have to say, what do I need to do to grow my market share, and having a strategy in place. A lot of people have great products, great services, but nobody knows about it, right? So the first question is, how does the target market know about your product and services? So the first thing is, do you even have a brand? Would they recognize you if you put your product out there, right? So having a marketing strategy is very important. I also believe a lot in collaboration. So if you're trying to grow the market share, who can you collaborate with, who is going in the same direction, but you're not doing the same exact thing? Let me give you an example, right? So for me, or us at Regal Africa, we are all about helping our clients create wealth. And we do that through, in this case, through business, through investment. Now, for someone to grow their business, they need to access finance, which again is a forecast that we do based on my background being a banker. Now, I do know that people are not able to get funding because of various reasons. One of them is they don't have the proof that they can be able to pay it back. For example, if they're in debt, the person who's lending to them doesn't know anything about them. Are they willing to pay them back? Their integrity issues, you know? So because someone who's giving you a loan wants to know, will I get this money back? And will this person pay me? That's all they want to know. So again, if it's equity, someone wants to know, will this business grow? Will this business have an exit strategy? When will I get my money? Now, what we have done at Regal Africa is to say, okay, we want to help our businesses access funding. The funders want to give money to these businesses. So the question is, how do we work together, right? So to grow my business and increase our market share in regards to being great advisors, we then now partner up with some of these funders and say, look, for those businesses that come to you and are not ready, let them know about us, because what we will do is we'll make sure that their books are right. We'll make sure that they have a strategy in place. We will make sure they have the right documentation that shows the opportunity, so that by the time they come back to you in the next 6 months or maybe a year when they're ready for funding, it's easy for you to make a decision, right? So that's what I'm talking about, collaboration. You're able to work with someone who's going in the same direction as you. Another example I could give is maybe somebody is, I was just thinking about something that is complementary. Maybe you are in the gym, you own a gym, and want people to be healthy, right? So they come, they pay for the gym, and they work out. You can actually collaborate with somebody who's probably in the wellness industry, who is a nutritionist, or someone who sells water, or someone who sells maybe energy drinks or something. So together, you're able to increase market share. So for you to penetrate the market and be able to grow your business, you need to get the right funding. You need to be able to do research about how to grow that. You need to know your competition. You need to be able to collaborate. More people have partnerships so that you grow together. And all this all boils down to research. Do you know your industry? Do you know the market? And if you don't know, find a professional who will be able to do research for you so that you can make the right decision. And if the other thing that I do is I'm very big on global trade. So I've just thought about it. So if you're looking to penetrate the market, for example, regionally, continentally, or globally, you then need to find who will give you that information, right? So if, let's say, for example, you are trying to go to the Netherlands, do you find out information from the embassy? Do you find out the information from a business membership organization that is interested in international trade, like the organization I work with, which is OIT Nairobi, Organization of Women in International Trade? Do you go into the Chamber of Commerce that will be able to give you information about that? Do you go to the consulate office if there's no embassy? So basically, for you to go into a market, you need to know a lot of this information, and there are different people that you can talk to do that. One of the things that we do is we do market research in regards to the East African market. So anyone who's interested in coming to the East African market from overseas, we do offer that service. So it's about finding who can help you get more information so that you can go into that market. Now, if you need funding, again, it's about positioning and being able to say, what kind of funding can I get to grow into that market? So, but that's a whole other topic, like I said, because market strategy is big and you need to actually be very clear, because you don't want to go into a new market where you do not have the right information. But then locally, it's about positioning yourself, marketing. People might not buy because they've seen you, but again, you're in their mind. You need to be top of mind so that when they're ready to buy, they'll approach you. But if you don't market, how will they know that you exist? And when they're ready, where will they go, right? So you have to market, and you have to have also the right people in your team who can share the right information to close the sale, because you can do all the marketing that you want, but if you don't close a sale, then you will not be successful. All right, so I think I've gone ahead and answered all the questions that we had. I don't know if I have more questions on Facebook before we call it a day. Just give me a moment so that I look in. Today we had more questions happening. Questions on Facebook before. That's what happens when. Okay, all right. So Emily Mombi says, reminds me of Rich Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, Cash Flow Quadrant. On the left, we have employees and self-employed. Okay, all right. These people need to move to the right of the quadrant, which is business owner and the business. Yes. So I agree with him wholeheartedly. You want to eventually become an investor. I know that's what I want. So everything that I've done, I've been employed in corporate. I have run my own business. I keep moving up, because the goal is eventually to be an investor, have all these businesses, but having people manage it. So that's my goal. So I hope that's the same for you in business. All right. And Moiwa Kishu says, excellent from Boy, a very good start of the series. Thank you very much. I am glad you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in other episodes, because I know you're very interested in business investment, especially you're very, very, very interested in investments, especially in the stock market and also chamas. So thank you very much for joining in. I see here Pauline says, I take my young children to the factory ever so often for them to learn about business. They help me in packaging too. Talk about the business with them every day. I agree. Like I told you earlier, my family, my parents had businesses when I was very young. My mom had a boutique, a salon, and I would go there. In fact, I learned how to braid hair just because you're bored, you're braiding people's hair. And by the time when I went to States, I used to do that. I've always been interested in fashion because I was exposed to this. Eventually, she was in hardware. My family was in hardware, different businesses. So I got exposed to it because, again, as a child, you're actually seeing how things are done. So what you're doing, Pauline, is giving them the right foundation for them to help you grow that business. Because by the time they get to a certain age where you want them to take over the business, they have grown with it. A good example, for example, is Chandaria Industries here in Kenya. I mean, what generation is the generation that is running it right now, because it's a family business, watched their fathers, their relatives run that business. And so even though they went outside and worked for other companies, they came back to the family business. And that's because they understood the intricacies of that business. So what you're doing, Pauline, is really great. And thank you for that. All right. And I see Faith here saying, or I see a couple people watching. All right. So that is great. I see a few people commenting on Zoom. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I hope you enjoyed this business conversation with Gaitha. I know I really enjoyed this first episode. Like I said, I just really wanted to paint a picture about the next episodes and what we'll be doing in discussing business. Business is the only sustainable way to eradicate poverty on this continent. Business is the way for you to create generational wealth. Business is a way for you to make money, extra money for you to invest outside your career. In this case, if you have a side hustle. But how do you run a great business? How do you run a business that is profitable? How do you run a business that can run itself when you're not there? How do you move from being self-employed to business owner, to entrepreneur, to investors? Those are the things that we'll be discussing, and I'm hoping to get a good guest who will come in and tell you their journey in business that will inspire you to make the right decisions, especially at this time of COVID, whereby things are going to change. And one of the things I'll be talking about a lot, and I want all of you to pay attention, is really around digital transformation. It's about using technology the right way. I tell people right now, I am here in Kenya, but it doesn't matter where anyone is in the world. If they want my service or my products, they can pay for it all online. The people I do business with, I have never met, right? It's a click of a button, they fill out forms, or we have meetings on Zoom like this, and they pay me. Why? Because of technology, all right? So do not restrict yourself to just your local environment. Do not restrict yourself to just what you knew. It is time to learn new ways of running businesses that are successful, that are profitable, that can run for generations to come. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining in today. I really, really appreciate that, and I hope to see you next Wednesday. I will have to mention this for some of you who are on the call and maybe you need funding. I am part of a group that called Women Program Economic Council, that we are looking for African women and African American women who are looking for funding. And we are going to be having a competition soon at the end of August, going all the way. And we are looking for great women in business so that they can get funding from specific investors. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and follow us on social media, which is Regal Africa, REGAL AFRICA, and you will see a form that you need to fill that you can be able to get funding. The other thing, we're really big about helping people to link them up to funders, investors, and advisors. We do have a program that is called East Gold Connect. You can also find us also online. Just Google East Gold Connect, and we will be able to connect you to funders, investors, and advisors. Coming soon, we have 30 steps for you to take in 30 days to run a professional business that is going to be successful. So be on the lookout, or send us an email and we'll give you more information about that. And I also want to thank Elite Global Branding, which is company in Los Angeles that does all the branding. For all of you who joined in today, you probably saw a flyer somewhere on social media or WhatsApp, or and that is because of the great work that Elite Global Branding has been doing for me for the last couple of years. I mentioned earlier, brand asset is very important. I learned that a while back, that having a good and consistent brand is important. So I want to thank Elite Global Branding for doing that. And with that, I'll say thank you again for joining Business Conversation with Gaitha. I will be sharing this video on Facebook, on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Again, the channel is Gaitha, ANNEGAITHA. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter. My goal again is to give you the right information for you to make the right decision so that you can grow your businesses, whether it's a family business, whether it's a business of associate, whatever that business is, you need the right information, and we at Regal Africa are there for you to help you grow your business. So with that, I'll say good night for those of you who are in Africa. Have a good day for those of you who are in the States, because again, we have a global clientele. And I wish you all the best, and see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye.